Hi, everyone. I miss you. Can't wait till we're back together, at least if it's back together in Zoom. As promised, Charlotte's Web. Oh, by the way, this is my home classroom. Do you notice this from our classroom? I went in and I snuck it off the wall. Here we are, Ms. Vaughn, room 101. All right, Charlotte's Web. Before breakfast. "Where's Papa going with that axe?" said Fern to her mother as they were setting the table for breakfast. "Out to the hog house," replied Mrs. Arable. "Some pigs were born last night." "Well, I don't see why he needs an axe," continued Fern, who was only 8. "Well," said her mother, "one of the pigs is a runt. It's very small and weak, and it will never amount to anything. So your father has decided to do away with it." "Do away with it? Do away with it? You mean kill it? Just because it's smaller than the others?" Mrs. Arable put a pitcher of cream on the table. "Don't yell, Fern. Your father is right. The pig would probably die anyway." Fern pushed the chair out of the way and ran outdoors. The grass was wet and the earth smelled of springtime. Fern's sneakers were sopping by the time she caught up with her father. "Please don't kill it. It's unfair." Mr. Arable stopped walking. "Fern," he said gently, "you will have to learn to control yourself." Control myself? Control myself? This is a matter of life and death, and you talk about controlling myself? Tears ran down her cheeks, and she took a hold of that axe and she tried to pull it out of her dad's arms. Here she is. "Fern," said Mr. Arable, "I know more about raising a litter of pigs than you. A weakling makes trouble. Now, run along." "But it's unfair. The pig couldn't help being born small. I mean, if I had been born very small, at birth, would you have killed me?" Mr. Arable smiled. "Certainly not," he said, looking down at his daughter with so much love. "But this is different. A little girl is one thing. A little runty pig is another." "I see no different," Fern replied, still hanging on to that axe. "This is a matter of the most terrible case of injustice I ever heard of." A queer look came over Mr. Arable's face. He seemed almost ready to cry himself. "All right. You go back to the house, and I will bring you the runt when I come in. I'll let you start it on a bottle, just like a baby. Then you'll see what trouble a pig can be." When Mr. Arable returned to the house half an hour later, he carried a carton under his arm. Fern was upstairs changing into her sneakers. The kitchen table was set for breakfast, and the room smelled of coffee, bacon, damp plaster, and wood smoke from the stove. "Put it on the chair," said Mrs. Arable. Mr. Arable set the carton down at Fern's place. Then he walked to the sink and washed his hands and dried them on the roller towel. Fern slowly came in down the stairs. Her eyes were red from crying. As she approached the chair, the carton sort of wobbled and there was a scratching noise. There inside, looking up at her, was the newborn pig. It was the white one. The morning light shone through its ears, turning them all pink. "He's yours," said Mr. Arable, "saved from an untimely death. And may the good Lord forgive me for this foolishness." Fern couldn't take her eyes off the tiny pig. "Oh, she whispered. "Oh, look at him. He's absolutely perfect." She closed the carton carefully. First, she kissed her father. Then she kissed her mother. Then she opened the lid again, took the pig out, and held it against her cheek. Just at this moment, her brother Avery came into the room. Avery was 10. He was heavily armed, an air rifle in one hand and a wooden dagger in the other. "What's that?" he demanded. "What's Fern got?" She's got a guest for breakfast," said Mrs. Arable. "Wash your hands and face, Avery." "Well, let's see it. You call that a miserable thing a pig? That's a fine specimen of a pig. Why, it's no bigger than a white rat." "Wash up and eat your breakfast, Avery," said his mother. "The school bus will be here in an hour." "Well, can I have a pig too, Pop?" Avery asked. No. I only distribute pigs to early risers. Fern was up at daylight trying to rid the world of injustice. As a result, she now has a pig. A small one to be sure, but nevertheless a pig. It just shows what can happen if a person gets out of bed promptly. Let's eat. But Fern couldn't eat until her pig had a drink of milk. Mrs. Arable found a baby's nursing bottle and a rubber nipple. She poured warm milk into the bottle, fitted the nipple over the top, and handed it to Fern. "Give him his breakfast," she said. A minute later, Fern was sitting on the floor in the corner of her kitchen with her infant between her knees, teaching it to suck from the bottle. The pig, although tiny, had a good appetite and caught on quickly. The school bus honked from the road. "Run!" commanded Mrs. Arable, taking the pig from Fern and slipping a donut into her hand. Avery grabbed his gun and another donut. The children ran out to the road and climbed into the school bus. Fern took no notice of the others in the bus. She just sat there and stared out the window, thinking what a blissful world it was and how lucky she was to have entire charge of a pig. By the time the bus reached school, Fern had named her pet, selecting the most beautiful name she could think of. "Its name is Wilbur," she whispered to herself. She was still thinking about the pig when the teacher said, "Fern, what is the capital of Pennsylvania?" "Wilbur," replied Fern dreamily. The pupils giggled and Fern blushed.